Should all hygienists use loupes? What do you guys think about that?
I've never worn loops, so I
How
have no
dare you? How dare you, sir?
I've worn them. I've tried them. As far as I got.
Well, do
I,
anyone wear them? I don't. I don't wear them either.
oh my gosh.
Wow.
So do you, Mark? I think you
Oh
do,
yeah,
right?
I do,
Okay,
absolutely.
yes. And well, and I was there were no loops that existed, I think, when I was in hygiene school. So it's been, 20 plus years. That just wasn't even a topic of whether or not you needed them. So probably about 10 years after that, my co-hygienist had loops coming out of hygiene school, and she was surprised that I didn't have them, but I thought hers looked very heavy and bulky. They weren't the through the lens ones. They're the adjustable kind. And so when I finally found a pair of loupes that was in my price range and that were lightweight, I haven't looked back. And if anything, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my patients if I'm not using the loupes. And not only that, if my loupes are out of service, I would rather have my light. I have a headlight that I use, and you don't know what you can't see. And yeah, once you've seen it, you can't. It's like you can't unsee it. So that's how it is with loops. Once you've gotten used to it, going back to not having loops it feels like a travesty to me because I know I could do better, and it's like cheating too because my back doesn't hurt at the end of the day.
I do have a light.
Yeah. Oh, you have a light?
You do have a light. Well, see,
Light.
and I think I really do think that's half of the
That's half,
equation.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wrote that on my list too. You need a
What?
light. You need a light. Yeah, a headlamp is pretty good. I don't wear that either. But I know I'm terrible. But however, I do know a lot of hygienists in our state and in Oregon. They have them where they kind of switch off and on. So if they're doing restorative functions, and then they use them for that. My brother's one of those that he likes to use them all the time. He says he can't do a filling without it. For me, I think I use a lot of my just like tactile sense, of just everything as I'm trying to do my cleanings. So, I mean, if I leave a little bit of stain behind in some pit or something, I don't feel bad about that.
You should feel bad. I'm joking.
I just know it's not gone area, so I'm good to go.
Yeah. Well, here's my path. In hygiene school, they didn't make us buy them, but they had a rep come in from Sheer Vision, and probably half the class bought them. They told us for hygienists, 2.5 is enough. I have 4.5 now, but yeah, it's a lot. I know. That's max though for hygienists probably. So we started with 2.5 in school, but in school you're like still learning. So I didn't have a light at the time; it was just a loupe. So I was struggling with the overhead light. So I kind of gave up on it. After a while, just from the struggle, put them away after school for about a year. No loupes, no light. It's worked that way. Then I bought like a really, really cheap headlight. I used that, and it was just nice to have a light and not have to worry about the overhead light or your head getting in the way and that kind of nonsense. And then after about a year of that light, because the battery would die so fast, I said, I'm going to buy a good light. So I had Sheer Vision loupes at the time. So I bought their Sheer Vision light, which was a really bright light. So I grabbed my loupes out of the closet that had been sitting there for years. I put that headlight on it, and it was like I saw Jesus, So, and then after a while, I was at like maybe a year or so with 2.5s, and I kept finding myself bringing the patient even closer to me. So I was like, I want more. So I said, well, should I go 3.5? I said, I'm just going to jump. I don't care. I went to 4.5. I got used to it like a week, and like no problem. But for me, like now, I mean, if I don't have my loupes, I have backup loupes too, 4.5 backup loupes, backup light. Because if I don't have it, I feel totally lost. And for me, like with 4.5s, especially with a good light, I mean, I can blow the gums back on an upper molar, and I can look down that pocket, like a good couple of millimeters easily. And for that, placing sealants, like, I mean, I'm like inside that tooth almost, So when I'm cleaning out the grooves, I use like a thin scaler. I use like micro etcher and all that stuff, so I can really, really see the grooves. And I don't know, to me, without my loupes, I'd rather not be a hygienist anymore. I mean, that's me, you know. My wife is a hygienist too. I bought her loupes, and she doesn't wear them. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I like to.
You guys have a preference on what loupes and light brands that you have come across that are good?
Yeah, well, now I have Luminedent Light. It's you can get a Dental Town discount on that too. So I think I got like 2 batteries and the light for like four something, which is not bad. It's a very nice, very light, very light, you know, isn't it? My loupes are cheap, actually kind of cheap loupes. They're Medlight loupes. I only paid like $4.50 for those. I priced one of the name brand ones at 4.5, and it was like $2,000. I was like, I don't want to spend that much money on loupes. So my loupes are okay. I mean, they're fine. I priced a Luminedent. They have loupes now. They have 4.0. I tried those at Yankee, and those are like I think $800. So it's not that bad. And those are through the lens. I don't have through the lens. I have the flip-up ones.
Right.
I want to get through the lens to get that lens like close to my eyes. You know, it's much better, right, Trish?
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that was basically the problem I always had with the flip up is I was never going to wear those. It was just not going to happen. But I am looking at Luminedents, getting a spare pair, actually, and retiring my Sandy Grindle loupes because they're modular, which means that the modules kind of don't always jive together with each other. After a while, they start trying to break apart. But it was still a really good investment because I've had that for about 10 years. But the through the lens, there's just no comparison because it is custom framed for you. The weight of it feels a lot more balanced. And not only that, you don't have the bulk of the loupes getting in the way of you being able to see the patient's reactions, making sure that they're comfortable, making sure that they're not, making faces behind your loupes because the big ones, tend to obscure a lot of that, and I don't get that with the through the lens. It's just there's a lot more. I hate to use the word intimacy, but it feels a little more intimate. No, I'm just saying because there's not this big like shield between you and the patient.
Do you have a name brand light, Daniel, or you have like kind of a cheap
Featherlight.
Oh, Featherlight. Okay, yeah, that's very similar to the Luminedent light. Yeah, it's very similar in size and all that.
When you guys are wearing your loupes and you guys are given anesthetic, aren't you guys ever worried you're gonna poke the patient's lip or something like that? That's kind of the transition that I had a hard time with in school was, when I did have the flip downs, the big bulky ones, but I couldn't, and I was brand new in school too, but I almost poked somebody one time and it freaked me out. I never went back to loupes because of that.
I've done it both ways. I kind of look past my loupes and do it, or I don't have them on at all sometimes. But I've done it through the loupes, 4.5, doing a block. But it works for me. Trish?
What's anesthesia?
Yeah, I use Papa, right? Yeah.
Oh, Texas.
Oh, Texas. Come on. Pass that bill. It's in there right again. This
Good luck.
Years. I know, thank you. We're pushing. We're trying to make it happen.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to give it without having to wait for the dentist, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I say just close your eyes and use the force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pressure points, right? Acupressure.
So Andrew, have you given up on loupes, or are you still thinking about?
They're actually in my cubby in my operatory at work for the one day that I'm going to be like, you know what? Everyone else is still doing it. It's not going away. I'm going to do it. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, I would say get the light though, because not having the light, it's not as good, because dealing with the overhead light with the loupes, it stinks. So having the headlight and the loupes, it's so nice to be able to like that light just follows you as you work.
I'd say the best way that a light is magic. Is when you can see the distal of a third molar, an upper third molar, as bright as you can, a central incisor with the overhead light. And when you see that, you go, yeah, I'm never going to use the overhead light again because there's no shadow. There's absolutely no shadow when you use a light. So, yeah, lights. I'd say a light over a loop if you're just going to pick one.
Yeah, definitely. Headlights is more important, but I mean those two together, it's magic.
Oh.
You can start with 2.5. That's probably enough for most hygienists.
Especially ones that don't know how to use needles, right?
Right. I actually tried 6.0 just for the hell of it at the show, and that was like way too much. It was like you're like right at the patient. It's like way too much. But so 4.5 is definitely max, but 2.5 to 3.5 for hygienists most likely. That's probably the ideal. But
when you look for the 4.5, do you just see one single tooth at a time?
no, I see half the mouth basically. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, there are two kind of loupes. There are prismatic loupes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the wide view, like they advertise wide view.
Okay.
And you have like the Galilean, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So the prismatic ones allow you to be close and spread the view. So I can actually see if I go back just a little bit, I can see half the mouth, or like the whole quadrant. But I usually see it maybe like 4 teeth, 3, 4 teeth. But I'm pretty close. It's pretty big.
See, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Trish.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the difference between the prismatic and the Galilean, because obviously I have a Galilean and it's a quadrant that I see at a time, which at 2.5 is. Sometimes you're right, though, it's not enough, and I've been looking at. I think they have a 3.5 at Lumadent, and that might be the one that I go to.
Yeah.
To have for those special, for doing sealants and that sort of thing.
When we were getting ours in school, they did a lot of distance, like working distances. Is that still kind of pretty important? Like I think they had like 16 inches, 18 inches, 22 inches, or is that not really talked about so much anymore?
It's kind of important, I think. I usually get the longest one they have, because even like the one I have is 21 inch, which is pretty long, and I still find myself not sitting up totally straight. And I'm like leaning forward a little bit. So yeah, so that's kind of important. Yeah, I mean to get like 15 or 17, you'll be a pretty short person, I think.
I've got to get loupes if only for the posture.
Yeah.
I'm practically like inside people's mouths upside down.
Yeah.
You'll still do that from time to time, but you do it less.
I see a lot of kids, and kids always stare at me through the loupes. They're like, "What is that?" I said, "It's a laser beam." You go, "What?"
Don't move.
Don't move, son.
I'll have to use that.
So you guys think it should be mandatory in hygiene school in 2015? I think it should, but maybe it's pushing too much cost on the students. But like from the get-go, having the light. Because to me, the problem in school for me was dealing with the loupes and the overhead light, because you lose the light, but having the headlight is night and day for me. But so you guys think it's too much for students to be buying it, or?
I don't know. I'm not convinced still, but to throw all that at them, it's a lot.
I guess still discount.
Well, if they were more affordable, I think it would just be one of those things that's part of your student kit over time. But at this point, it's personal preference. I don't look down on anybody who chooses not to, but I feel like that they're doing their body a disservice, probably first and foremost, if they're not using loupes and lights. Are they harming patients without the use of them? No, I don't think so.
I could see it being feasible if they could source the cheaper ones, maybe for a couple $100 or massive sales that they could have all the students use, and then people can just work their way up from there. That's the price of a scaler, of an ultrasonic tip.
Yeah. I think if they went with a company like Lumadent, they could probably get a pretty good deal. I'm sure. I think some hygiene schools actually make the students buy it, and I know some dental schools do. they have to buy loupes and a light. Um, so I see the trend going that way. I think hygiene schools are going to start mandating it. I don't know.
To be honest, though, I could see how a dentist should probably have one compared to, for what I would do instead of what they're doing. I think it'd be pretty beneficial for them. I see one patient every hour. They can see multiple patients every hour. They need to make sure their posture is correct. They need to make sure that they're not missing things during examinations and things like that. But I can see that benefit, I guess.
I wouldn't say that hygienists not using loupes are providing low quality. I would not say that at all. I just think that you can provide more quality, a higher quality if you have loupes. That's just me. I mean, because I'm so used to mine, and if I look at the teeth, outside the loupes, oh my God, it seems so far away. And so I don't know. I think it's kind of like athletes, professional athletes, if on steroids, it's like no steroids and stuff.
Removable steroids.
Right. Yeah. All right. Any more thoughts on that question, guys? I can move on to the next one. No?
No.
Good, okay.